The IMF is using the disbursement of $188 million as leverage to get Zambia's external creditors to agree to a restructuring plan for Africa's second largest copper producer. Of course, Zambia became Africa's first pandemic-era defaulter when it missed a payment on one of its Eurobonds in 2020. Since then, the country has been struggling to get its creditors to agree to a restructuring of nearly $13 billion in external debt. Now, Zambia's president will meet his French counterpart on Wednesday as part of efforts to speed up that restructuring. Earlier, CGTN's Ramanyang explored the bottlenecks in Zambia's restructuring efforts with the head of the Africa department at the IMF.
The fact that it was created itself is really a very, very important milestone. Why? What has happened over the years is that the structure of debt in the region has become very, very diverse. Very diverse. And so you needed a new framework to think about how to do debt treatment, to facilitate comparability of treatment across countries, to bring in new creditors who have not in the past provided debt treatment. So the creation itself was really, really important. And, we're talking about what, 2.5 years, 2 years since the creation of the framework?
Well, I mean, if you ask countries like Zambia, they'll say that's a bit long.
Well, Zambia asked for debt treatment last year, right? So, 18 months or so ago. And, the first assurance was provided under the common framework also, and allowing the program to proceed. So, so there are issues with the common framework, but just the creation of itself is a really important initiative, is the first point I wanted to make. And then second now is how to make the framework much more timely in terms of how quickly treatment can be provided under the framework. We already have one country that went through the common framework involving both private and official sector, Chad. Little remarked on, but that has happened. Zambia and Ghana are now the ones that where quick action is needed. In Zambia's case, as I said, assurances to proceed with the fund-supported program was provided last year. We went ahead and presented to the board. Now we have the first review pending, and there had been a commitment to come with a memorandum of understanding, giving the final terms of the restructuring that Zambia needs.
When is that supposed to happen? Is that first half of it?
We had hoped that it would happen in the first quarter of this year, first half of this year, and that there's a lot of progress has been made. A lot of progress has been made under that. Not fast enough for sure. So, and there are active discussions that are ongoing, and we hope to get positive news in the coming weeks.
But what exactly is the problem though with respect to Zambia's? I know, as you said, there's a diversity of creditors, right? If we're having this conversation in the 90s, it would be World Bank, IMF, probably 2 or 3, bilateral lenders. You could literally fit them into this room, have a conversation, hash it out, done. Now, though, you have to deal with God knows how many funds that have essentially bought into Eurobonds, plus China, plus on top of that, all the bilateral lenders. It's granted, it's a little more complicated to essentially get everyone's interests aligned. But in Zambia's specific case, the threat is clear. What's the hold up?
So, first of all, debt restructurings are always fairly contentious. Creditors, of course, do not want to accept loss and want to find a way to recoup the money that they've provided. And this is true not just in the case of African countries, everywhere. I mean, so creditors tend to move slow, and so that's one issue. The second issue also is just the complexity of the moment. We're working in terms of economic policy formulation in a period of radical uncertainty. The path for commodity prices keeps swinging up and down. The outlook for countries can be contested. Also, it took quite a bit of time to, collate and get hold of all of the debt obligations that countries have. So you shouldn't underestimate kind of the complexity of the period. There was a whole, many months in COVID when face-to-face discussions could not take place. But the fundamental thing is, first, creditors wanting to be very clear that the economic prospects in the countries that they've lent to really are changed and difficult, and in those, in those circumstances, coming to accept that and provide the debt relief. Second, also is like a lot of technical work, technical discussions that have to take place. There are also concerns about intercreditor equity, so assuring creditors that the treatment that they're going to receive is not going to favor or disfavor them relative to other creditors. So these issues have all taken a bit of time to come to terms with.